everybody, and welcome to One Sustainability. I'm James Rosenstein, a member of the advisory board of One Business World. One Sustainability features entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders who have sustainability as a core component of their overall strategy, presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest industry developments. Our goal is to educate and inform the global business and entrepreneurial communities on the importance of sustainability and to promote and support sustainable business growth all around the world. Today, we're very happy and honored to welcome global sustainability expert, wealth manager, advisor, and investor, Peter Klein. Peter Klein is the Chief Investment Officer and founder of ALINE Wealth. Peter is a published author of a technical work which speaks volumes of a career immersed in analytics and the science of investing. At ALINE Wealth, Peter and his team are focused on providing comprehensive solutions driven by the belief that wealth management is really life management. A fiduciary-centric focus on delivering something even more rare, honest, client-focused intelligence where clients come first. Peter was named to Forbes's 2020 and 2021 list of the best in state wealth advisors in New York. He is the recipient of the Community Impact Award by Long Island Business News 2021 Corporate Citizenship Awards, many other awards and recognitions. His practice was named on Wealth Management's first annual Thrive Awards list of fastest growing financial advisors in 2019. Peter has participated in panel discussions and has given speeches on the issues surrounding the nexus of wealth management and philanthropy, what he refers to as being a legacy agent. Peter, it is a great pleasure to have you here with us today to hear your case and your views on the importance of investing in the water sector.
Well, thank you, James.
Well, thank you and welcome to One Sustainability.
Well, thank you, and it's been it's my honor and privilege to be here today, and thank you and your team for allowing me to speak a little bit with you today about the case for water investing. And I'm going to get right to sharing my screen so we could sort of brief the audience on what this is all about. You should have a squiggly road in front of you. And when my business partner and I decided to join forces and develop and found ALINE Wealth, we did so with the thinking about the twists and turns of someone's life and financial life and the capital markets as well. They are twisty and turny. And what we're trying to do at ALINE is to connect the investor to his goals, to connect the family to its values. We are looking to draw a line through that squiggly road and get our clients to the other side and provide guardrails along the way. And so that is sort of the basis of what we do at ALINE Wealth. We're an independent registered investment advisory wealth management firm. And my role here, in part, is to be the chief investment officer. And under that moniker, we're here to develop strategies for our clients to invest in and to keep their car on the road to success. So allow me to start and talk a little bit and brief you all about why we think the water sector is ripe for investment. Here's some of my background. As James indicated, I've written a couple of books for John Wiley and Sons. My practice is at the intersection of philanthropy and wealth management, and I'm fortunate and blessed to have a wonderful team at my side at ALINE Wealth. Here are some recognitions that James had nice enough to mention. We are managing almost $900 million, a little bit above that. Main offices on Long Island, and our team has an average experience of 30 years plus. In addition, we're part of the Hightower network, and Hightower has 280 advisors. Mark Kravitz and I were number 41 and 43 respectively. So we've been here for a while, and we'll be here for a while more to come. We are jazzed and excited about the opportunities right now. And Hightower is a great partner. And as you can see, they've grown pretty substantially over the last 10 years. So the agenda today, getting right to it. Everyone's busy, so let's get right to it. Why water? Compelling economics. The basis of what we do in investing is economics, supply and demand. Well, you will see now that in the water sector, we've got compelling economics to allow us to invest in this sector with the full knowledge that we have the economics behind us. Opportunities in infrastructure. President Biden is just signing an infrastructure bill of mammoth proportions. A good chunk of that is in the water sector. It's sorely needed and important to have. We'll dig in a little deeper and talk about the testing and the metering subsectors to the water industry, the desalinization subsector. These are parts of the entire water sector. And of course, investment opportunities, where we see some opportunities. We cannot, of course, advocate or mention individual securities, but we can certainly give you a sense of what we're seeing out there. And then, of course, we cannot forget the sustainability factor. That's a very big part of why folks, especially clients of ours that are part of foundations, family offices, where they have the values aligned with their portfolio. That's a big issue today. We're constantly coming in front of families and philanthropic vehicles like foundations and endowments, and we get their mission statement, and then we look at their portfolio for them, and we say, hey guys, there's no alignment there. Your values are not aligned with your portfolio, and we help to fix that. Okay, so the economics of water, I mentioned, is supply and demand, and here it comes right down to the critical part of why we see water as important. There are no substitutes for fresh, clean water, and yet global water is there's a huge demand for it. 400% increase in industrial water expected by 2050. You can't do anything without water. I mean, manufacturing, making chips, agriculture, of course, health and drinking and cleanliness. So there's clearly, because there's no substitute, because we have the increasing human factor, population factor, and then in addition, we've got stressed areas around the world. You've seen what's happened in this country and around the world with respect to lack of water and drought conditions, and how that impacts the need for water. And of course, climate change is part of that. And then the other piece is our aged infrastructure. We are in desperate need, and I think the new infrastructure bill speaks to this in large measure. We're in desperate need for infrastructure investment globally, and the number that we're looking at, almost $12 trillion, is needed between now and 2030. Think about it. Our infrastructure, at least in this country and many parts of the Northeast and sort of the Eastern coast, some of that infrastructure is hundreds of years old. And, you can imagine what's happening there, from lead to particles, to inefficiencies, to leakages. So there's a bit of work to be done. And all of this is a driver of cash flows and growth and earnings and revenues, all towards that aforementioned water sector. So there's a demand. We have lack of supply. We didn't really touch on that, but you'll see shortly a small percentage of the world's water is essentially potable, where you could use it, drink it, and utilize it. Much of it is much of it is salt water, and even the fresh water, some of it very hard to get. Think of icebergs, right? So it becomes an issue of mammoth proportions when you think about the driver of demand and the lack of supply, and the combination is the opportunity thereof in the water sector. So here is a scattergram plotting the price versus the stress periods. And you can see that many countries are facing high water stress, and water prices are subsidized and fail to reflect the scarcity value of water. That, I think, is going to be a big change as we go forward. We're going to get better pricing of water, which is going to allow a sort of wake-up call, if you will, to what the real value of water is. Right now, people they don't seem to care about it. I said years ago that people are going to realize the importance of water as they see their water utility bill increase. And it has over the last 10, 12 years, you've seen a pretty substantial increase in the water utility bill. And I don't think it's even accurate yet. I think we have a lot more to go for it to come in parity and to really be a true price. Water intensity, I mentioned earlier how you need water for everything, right? From animals and cotton, eggs and rice. But what's not listed here is manufacturing, and that's another big part of what water is used for, not just growing, but for manufacturing. And you see that a little bit here, where it's an essential commodity. There is no substitute. You need it, for, of course, urban vitality. You need it for public health as a critical part. We talked about food and agriculture. Energy too, you can't produce energy without water, and they need a lot of it. And so there's, and again, we can't live without energy. So this is part of what we see as a big driver towards why folks who are looking for sustainable investment opportunities tend to look at water as a sort of almost no-brainer. Okay, so much of the world's water supply is drawn from stressed water basins. So here you have how many stressed water basins there are out of the 410, and you could see that there, 22% of them are becoming stressed, and that's an important measurement because, again, it goes to supply and demand. If we have reducing supply and increasing demand, well, you don't have to have a doctorate in economics to understand that that's going to cause the price to increase. So as we see these prices increase, now there's much more of a bias or an interest to make sure we control those price increases with increased efficiency in the infrastructure side. So scarce waters, fresh water supply, again, less than 2.5% of the world's total supply is fresh water. And again, you have this rapidly growing population, especially urban population. And that, coupled with the need for water, is why we find ourselves somewhat in this delicate position right now. 10% of the world's population lacks access to drinking water. That's 2.5 billion. Who don't have adequate sanitation. Now think about what that means for public health. Think about what that means for just the safety of the environment, and its lack of sanitation is an awful situation. 2.5 billion people. It's a lot, and so these are the things that and it's only going to get worse as we see more population growth and more of the drought conditions that we're seeing from climate change. And there's climate change right here, and it's another major impact to water quality and quantity. These are the drivers that we look at when we think about why invest in water. And then finally, infrastructure has been given a failing grade for decades. And now the United States population, $1 trillion must be invested in infrastructure projects over the next 20 years. I mean, there's so much to do. And then, fortunately, we have a good chunk of capital coming our way from the recent infrastructure bill. Okay, so here I want to just walk you through this diagram a bit that talks about the different pieces of the water sector, right? It's multifaceted. Okay, we've got we talked about how only less than 3% of all the water is fresh water, and then only 1% is available for consumption. So we have, limited supply, growing demand from agriculture and food products to feed the increasing population, and of course, demand for manufacturing. Here's this piece. So you've got a pretty upside down picture there where you have lack of supply and dramatically increasing demand. And that's pushing us through, what they term as a water crisis. And I don't disagree. 2x projected global water consumption by 2050, and 40% under the current scenario, 40% projected water deficit. So when you see that kind of imbalance, you could expect an impact on prices. And again, as the price differential changes, that leads to more growth and more opportunity for the companies that are in the water sector. So here we just talk about the population. And again, investment opportunities range from reducing pollution, increasing efficiencies, maybe it's metering, maybe it's better infrastructure. And we talk about that here too. 69% of the population is projected to live in cities by 2050. This global urban positioning is in part why we're having stressed infrastructure and stressed water infrastructure. All right, I want to talk about PFAS. It's one of these forever chemicals that you've been hearing about lately. There's been programs on TV that highlight it, and it's part of the infrastructure bill. These are chemicals that have been around for decades. You'll find them on clothing, you'll find them on cooking pans, and anything that has like a non-stick protective coating to it are these PFAS, and I can't put, here it is, perfluoroalkyl substances. And what the deal here is that they're not good for you. Now, we've been living with them for decades, as I said, but now we've gotten to the point where we're needing to clean this up, and there's a fair amount of opportunity for those companies that are involved in the remediation of these chemicals from the water systems. Not difficult to do, just has a big job, but that big job means big revenues for many years to come. So we're looking at this as an opportunity, not just from a sustainable, many of our clients are foundations and endowments and family offices that understand the importance of the environment, and they want to continue to do that, continue to support companies that make the environment healthier and more sustainable for future generations. Well, this is one of the things they could get behind. And so, now they're not only are they using their largesse to make important grants to organizations that help with the water situation right around the world, access to water, clean water, sanitation, and the like. But now they're also using their corpus of their philanthropic entity, right? The corpus of their foundation to invest and further promote and advocate for these companies. So it's a double win in that regard. It's more about PFAS is here. You'll see how it contaminates Wisconsin's waterways and soil. Chemical companies avoid paying for pollution. This has been a big issue for many, many years. And these forever chemicals they're not seeming to go away. And it's now the new strategy is getting a lot more focused on this, thankfully. And companies again are in a good, certain companies are in a good position to take advantage of this and to help along the way, to help reduce these toxic forever chemicals. Okay, back to the water sector and the water stocks in particular. We talked about supply and demand. The other thing about it is inelastic demand, right? Where higher prices do not limit use. So in economics, if you remember your sort of 101 economics class in college, you have something known as inelastic demand, where no matter what the price is, you're going to buy it. And water is certainly, one of those types of goods that is inelastic. And so we believe that the increasing price likelihood, the likelihood of increasing prices over the years is not going to in any way reduce demand. And we see increasing scarcity, as we talked about with the climate change, and huge barriers to entry. You just can't get into the water industry that easily. I mean, there's a fair amount of barriers before you could actually participate in this industry. Consistent, solid cash flow growth. These are the kinds of commonalities that we find in our portfolio that we've been running for more than a decade in the water sector. In infrastructure, we're finding opportunities as well. Here are some photographs you'll see of some, water mains and canals and bridges and these pipes in Flint, Michigan, all full with the lead. It's a lot of work to be done here, folks. And there are companies, but maybe, several of a handful of them that focus on this. And understanding those companies, understanding their cash flows, their business operations, how they do what they do, allows us to better position the portfolio, take advantage of this report card, which is failing. And we need to invest here, and we're doing so. We need more, but it's a good start to get this up to snuff. We need to move forward here. Water main breaks, you hear about it all the time. We, in Manhattan, around the country, so think about that. You have scarcity of water, you have the demand for water, and now you have water that's being, sort of ignored and wasted. And so that's a big issue going forward, and one that is so critical that we need to fix this infrastructure to avoid this wasting and avoid this these water main breaks. And think about it, these pipes are probably 100 years old in many cases. They need to be fixed. And the technology is so elegant today, so brilliant, where they could go into the actual pipe, repair it from the inside, and not even have to dig up the whole the whole road and the whole gravel. Really interesting stuff. So we need to bring that. We need to bring the exciting technology of 2020s into the sort of staid 1930s world of infrastructure. Government investment. I guess President Biden has presented his $2 trillion plan to rebuild infrastructure, which is obviously a lot less than two. It's probably closer to 1.7, I believe. This increase in federal spending in the sector could be a potential boon for ESG water-centric investors. Now, I want to talk about the testing and metering sector. These are subsectors like within the larger scheme of water. So, so in the water testing includes physical, chemical, and microbiological. Remember the PFAS, this is part of that, right? Where they test the water to meet the demands of consumption, and to do so in a chemical-free, bacteria-free water. And so we are, there are companies that are focused on this and solutions that are focused on this. In the same token, it's really hard to price something effectively if you don't know how much you're using. And so the metering sector is really exciting these days because it allows buildings, residential, commercial buildings, to really have a better sense on where their leakages are, where the waste might be, and how much they're using. And now they have these wireless water meters where they're able to determine the usage without having to go read the meter. And back in the days where you had a water meter read, you don't need that anymore. It can be done electronically and wirelessly, which is helpful because we can't price something if we don't know how much we're using or wasting. Here's the water testing market around the world. As you can see, a good chunk of it is in Europe and North America. We're looking at a CAGR of 5.6% a year on different types of water testing. But you can see it's a global environment. You can see it goes from pH to conductivity, and you have these different ways of doing this kind of testing. But it is a critical part of making sure we are able to deliver safe, clean drinking water. And then on the metering side, as I mentioned, there's been some infrastructure changes and some innovations that allow us to do so electronically. But you could see how there are residential applications as well as industrial applications for this, and you could just see how much more we're going to be spending to get us to fully installed base by 2024. So a good chunk, a good CAGR here, almost more than 6%. And the more, and then of course, the companies that are in this industry, they're in a sweet spot because as the years go by, they're making more and more inroads, and that's allowing them to obviously increase their cash flow and opportunities to for investors. Smart water metering market. This is where we're talking about the electronic digitization and AI in some cases, smart water, and it allows you. We have this in a very small segment, in our home. We have a water mitigation device, and it goes on our water main. And if there is ever a consistent water flow, not like a shower but like a leak, if some for a half hour, it shuts off the water, the whole house. And so when you're away, you feel comfortable that your home is sort of protected from a massive water damage. And this is becoming a pretty big thing for residential units as well as for commercial units. So good, strong growth opportunity there as well. Again, these are subsectors to the water sector. And here you can see the growth for the smart water meter market revenue. Here's a picture of one of these water mitigation devices. They're expecting a 13.5% CAGR around the world. So we're seeing a whole change happening in this sector, and it's opportunistic and frankly it's good for the entire water sector to have these mitigation devices there to help prevent major issues. All right, so we talked about how 97% of all the water is salt water, and wouldn't that be great to sort of figure out a way to get that salt out of the water, and you've sort of solved the supply problem overnight if you could do that. Not so easy, by the way. There is desalinization plants, but they all are very expensive and very energy expensive. So as we said here, most of the water is seawater. Desalinization is the process in which we treat the water by removing the salt and minerals to produce drinking water. And of course, it's important to have that, but it's just not easy to do. It's costly, and it's costly from an energy perspective. But this is a good diagram to frame the issue of how much water you have. Again, back to supply, right? So 97, 98% of the world's water is salt water. And then you have a 3% or so that's in fresh water. As I said earlier, much of that is in glaciers and ice caps. So you have essentially half of 1% available and a good chunk of that's in lakes and water vapor. And so it's not a lot. And remember how much the demand is increasing. So here you see that whole story again with the economics. So when you desal water, is a multifaceted, many nodes along this process, each of which have industries and companies and products to which I would argue would be opportunistic going forward, because they are doing this. It's just they have to figure out a way to do it less expensively and less energy centric. But they're getting there. I believe in innovation, and I believe that we're certainly along the way with respect to water, to desalinization. So we're moving in the right direction. I'm sure there'll be further innovative, breakthroughs, and that will allow us to do so much more efficiently. But essentially, you remember, you could see companies in every one of these nodes and every one of these parts of the entire process, and all those companies are opportunities. Global water desalination market to surpass 27 billion. So they are gearing up, and you can see we have equipment companies, filtration media companies, the reverse osmosis and the screening of water, right? You've got maintenance and repair, installation, industrial, municipal. So there's a lot of players here, a lot of opportunity. You got to understand which ones are on the cutting edge and opportunistic. So U.S. infrastructure stimulus, we talked about that. Rising soft commodity prices. Yes, inflation is here. Of course, the climate change issue is not going away, and it's causing major issues that we have to deal with, especially the water scarcity side. And of course, when you're looking at opportunities, you can look at them through infrastructures, we said, maybe utilities that take in the water, deliver it, treat the water. You have products like industrial companies that make certain products. And then you have energy companies that use the water to make energy. So a multifaceted supply chain with many nodes of opportunity. This is a diagram showing the S&P Global Water Index and how it has surpassed the MSCI All Country World Index by a substantial margin, and really outperformed the S&P Global Index. This is the last 10 years, and extraordinary sort of growth, 11% per year. I think it's just beginning. I think we have a long runway here, because you can't live without water. And as we said, the economics are on our side. So, but like anything else, you got to find the right Indians and the right companies to work with you in your portfolio. And that's what we do. We help you, and in the fund we manage, we help provide these types of companies for your consideration. Sustainable development goals. We have these lovely goals out there from the UN, and a good number of them are focused on water. And so we definitely want to be understanding and appreciative of that and work towards that, because again, part of this strategy is to be sustainable and to have an eye towards sustainability and social responsibility. So that is the basis of our presentation today. I thank you for your attention, and I certainly appreciate your attention. And James, I'll push it back to you if there's any comments that you would like to make or any questions you might have.
Well, Peter, thank you very much. This is a most interesting topic, and I fully realize how important it is. I do have a couple of little questions. There was one figure mentioned at the beginning of your presentation saying that 0.4% of global water is accessible to human consumption.
Yeah, well,
that seems unbelievable.
It's tiny. It's tiny amount. Even much of the water that is of human consumption is locked away in those glaciers. And they're really, and now with climate change, those glaciers are now releasing the water because they're melting. But where are they going? They're going back into the salt water. Yeah. So you have this fresh water is melting ice cube of fresh, good water being sort of substitute, being put into the saltwater pool. So
Yeah.
now we got to desalinate. How are we going to get it? So that's an issue, and that's a big issue.
Yeah. Another thing I've seen in other parts of the world, next to houses and buildings, there are systems to collect rainwater.
Oh yeah,
which are held and then used like for, not for drinking, but for
watering.
washing and watering and things like that.
Yeah, we have one in our house. In fact, my wife put one in. It's great.
uh,
Yeah, it's one of these things where you say to yourself, "Hey, we have all this water, and now because of climate change, we're seeing these storms of great magnitude, and we should capture some of that. That's fresh water. And again, you're not going to drink it, but you could certainly sort of water your lawn, water your flowers, use it, and that's the nature of sustainability."
yeah. There's also a lot of talk about plastics, the pollution from plastics.
Mm.
And do you think our water system is very badly polluted by plastics, even in the form of microbes and things like that?
Well, it's not good, I'll tell you that. And we certainly, with the United States, especially the United States and other developed countries around the world, are doing a very good, have done and continue to do a very good job at keeping their water systems clean. And they have lots of regulations and lots of testing that's done to do that. And that's a critical component of keeping health, for public safety. You may
Yeah.
also be talking about the pollution of water, of plastic in waterways, oceans and rivers and such. And you've seen those horrific photographs of these mammoth, sort of slugs of pollution of plastic and other garbage, essentially, right in the middle of the ocean. And so
Yeah.
that is another problem, because that will continue to affect, the wildlife, the fish, and of course the seabed as well.
Yeah. Now, a little different. I have realized over the years that water also plays a role in politics.
Mm.
There are certain countries that have access to water, and in order to give access to other countries, it becomes a very political situation. And in politics, a lot of people in charge don't take care of the water system. You spoke about Flint, for example. That's a big issue. So how do you see politics as playing a role, or how do you see water as playing a role, a big role in the future development of politics and political issues?
Well, you're spot on with that, James. I mean, I think it's a critical component. It's important. I mean, public safety, health. If anything, coming out of the pandemic, we realized that public health is a critical of critical importance, and water, you can't be healthy without water. So yeah, it's definitely an important part, and I suspect we're going to see what I have dubbed water wars. Where you're going to see countries that say, "Hey, listen, I need that water at this country next to me. They've got water, I need it. I'm going to sort of, invade, or what have you, or make a deal." In a small way, we're seeing that in our country with out west with rivers, and there are some really draconian laws back in the 1800s that out west that allow certain landowners to own the waterways and the water, even though they are not, it's not part of their land, where where the water goes, and they can control where the water goes, and they could say to some other area, "Hey, you need some water over there, let's make a deal." So we're going to see more and more of that. I don't know how that's going to flesh out from a political standpoint in this country, but clearly countries, counties, states are going to want their water. And we're some places around the United States, like the Northeast, are they're lucky because they've got a better water situation, let's say. But then you look at Arizona, you look at the Southwest and California, there are some major issues there.
Yeah, it's a big issue in the Middle East as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have desalinization. They've been focusing on that, especially Israel, has
Yeah.
been focusing on that for many years. And so they are leaders in that area, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Peter, this has been such an interesting conversation, and thank you so much for shedding light on this. We need to be much more aware. We want to thank you again for your time and this excellent presentation as part of the One Sustainability series. So thank you very much, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Well, thank you, James, and thank you to your team, and look forward to chatting again soon.